In this week's episode, we have a talk about the ideal Christmas gifts for the space enthusiasts.
And with that in mind, I talked to Max Kaiserman, the owner of LunaReplicas.com, to discuss some of their amazing products.
And if you want to give us a Christmas present, the easiest thing to do is give us the gift of embracing us on social media. Follow us at Space and Things 1 on Twitter, or get involved at Space and Things Podcast on Facebook and Instagram.
Or perhaps join our Patreon page, patreon.com/Space and Things, to really give us some Christmas cheer. But right now, it's time for episode 15 of the Space and Things podcast.
Oh my God. Unbelievable, but isn't great done?
You're listening to the Space and Things podcast with Emily Carney and Dave Giles.
I'm Emily Carney.
And I'm Dave Giles, and welcome to episode 15 of our podcast. So something very strange just happened. Emily and I just attempted to watch a launch together, literally as we were about to start recording. The SN8 Starship prototype by SpaceX was about to launch and aborted at T-minus 1 second. So it seems like we're both cursed on that one, Emily. That's on both of us. That's one attempt to launch together and one failure.
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out. I think Todd Oliver just messaged me and was like, "You were watching this, weren't you?" And I was like, and I haven't responded yet, but he is not incorrect. So I was watching it, so I jinxed that one. So now I can't watch the next one, unfortunately. Oh well.
Yeah, so we were gonna address this later on in the show because it hadn't happened yet, and as we were filming, and then it seemed like it was just about to happen. But yeah, for those of you who don't know about the SN8 Starship, it's this crazy looking rocket. It's just out of a sci-fi movie, as we mentioned last week, and if they get this thing going, it's just mental. It's just crazy. Anyway,
yes.
Hopefully, we'll have more to say on that at a later date.
Yeah, hopefully they'll get it spun up in the next week or so. Who knows? When it does, it'll get pretty exciting. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. So Emily, I believe congratulations are in order.
Oh, yeah.
You are a award winner.
Yeah, Searching for Skylab. I was the technical advisor for that film. Searching for Skylab won Best Documentary in the Eastern European Film Festival. So all of us on the film staff received a nice little certificate. We did also win a second award. We won Best Documentary at I think the Swedish Film Festival as well. And I think that's a trophy for all of us. So we've won 2 awards, which is incredible. I don't really take credit for much of it. I was just the technical advisor. I was kind of more of a consultant, on a consultant basis, like, did we get this part right? Does this jive okay, with everything? But
that's still an important role.
Yeah, I don't take much credit for it. I was in the film, interviewed, which was a lot of fun as an expert. But yeah, most of the credit I give to Dwight Stephen Bonecki and his wife, who also produced the film, Alexandra. That was their vision. So it was very exciting to be a part of their vision, and it's very neat to see the film earn some well-deserved accolades. So I'm very happy.
No, I'm happy for you as well. It's also great because it's given us an opportunity to bring up Skylab again. It's been a whole two full episodes before this without mentioning it. So no one picked up on it, and I'm disappointed in certain people for not picking up on that. But yeah, 2 full episodes with no Skylab mention. But we just redeemed ourselves there, Emily. We've redeemed ourselves.
Yes, we're back on track with the Skylab references. We're going to have like a new countdown, like this many weeks with no Skylab or something like that. We used to have a Baran countdown in Space Hipsters, like this many days without Baran, and every day it was
reset the clock.
Yeah, every day it was like 0 because somebody would bring it up at some point, like, "Hey guys, have you heard about like, oh my god." So yeah. So now we're going to have a Skylab counter as well. That'll be pretty funny.
Yeah, I like that idea. So do you now have an IMDb account with a page with your credits and your award? Is that happening? Is that in the pipeline?
Yeah, I do have I do have an IMDb account. However, I do not know how to edit it yet, which is embarrassing. So if anybody could reach out and teach me how to actually edit that, I would really appreciate it for professional reasons. But because there is a listing of me on there, and I'm listed as a man. So
no way.
Yeah, his credits, he is featured in Searching for Skylab, and I'm like, what? Like, yeah. So I have no idea why I'm listed as a dude, because it has my name Emily Carney on there, and I don't know. I'm not offended. I'm not upset by that, but I'm still like, I have no idea how to edit this. So
yeah, answers on a postcard, please, people. How do we edit Emily's IMDb page? And while we're doing shout outs and asking people for favors, I'd just like to thank a few people listening. Some people joined in on my 12-hour streams who are listeners to our podcast who wouldn't have known any of my music before this. I did a 12-hour stream on Saturday singing songs, which was a long time, and it was nice to see some of our listeners pop up. So thank you very much for joining in on that. But right now, dude, let's get cracking with the show, shall we?
Yeah, let's do that, man. Let's do that, and then let's crush a couple of beers afterwards. I don't know what men. How do men talk? I don't even know. The thing that's sad is I don't sound like a guy. I sound like Elizabeth Holmes. I don't sound like a man. I sound like the Theranos woman.
Yeah.
I have offended everybody in the world right now, and I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I can see it now. I'm getting canceled this week. All right, let's move on.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
Okay, we'll start this week's news section with we do have some sad news, unfortunately. One of the last pilots with the right stuff has died at age 97. On this show, we want to remember the life and career of Air Force General Chuck Yeager, who, on October 14th, 1947, became the first pilot verified to have broken the sound barrier in the Bell X-1, which was called Glamorous Glennis, after his wife. He later became the commandant of the United States Air Force Aerospace Research Pilot School, which educated many a legendary test pilot, including many of the early astronauts. A recipient of countless awards and honors, including being inducted into the National Aviation Hall of Fame. That's the highest you can go in aviation. The International Air and Space Hall of Fame, and the International Space Hall of Fame. He was famously depicted by actor Sam Shepard in the movie version of The Right Stuff, which was, of course, adapted from the 1979 Tom Wolfe book that has the same title. His legend did continue with the 1986 publication of his autobiography, which is simply called Yeager. We at Space and Things would like to send our condolences to General Yeager's family, his widow Victoria, and his friends.
Yeah, very sad news indeed. But in the wider world of space, we are lucky this week because there have been a number of great stories for us to sink our teeth into. So we'll pick the mood up now. But since the recording of our show last Tuesday, there have been 4 different launches from Earth to orbit. On Wednesday, the 2nd of December, the Soyuz STA launched from Arianespace from French Guiana. I actually didn't know that Arianespace purchased Soyuz rockets, but I do now. And it carried a satellite for the United Arab Emirates Armed Forces, so a collaborative effort indeed. And the very next day, the Russians launched their own Soyuz rocket from the Plesetsk Cosmodrome in Russia. No idea if I said that right, but we'll go with it. Placing 4 separate satellites in order for orbit for the Russians. And on Sunday, the 6th of December, we had 2 launches. One in China, where the Long March 3B rocket placed an Earth's observation satellite into orbit. And then later that day, SpaceX sent a cargo version of the Dragon 2 capsule from Kennedy Space Center to rendezvous with the International Space Station, carrying supplies and the NanoRacks Bishop airlock module, which is the first permanent commercial addition to the space station. Exciting times indeed.
And we also had a launch from the moon. Last week, we spoke about the Chang'e 5 mission to the moon, and having collected its sample, it is expected to be back on Earth between December 16th and 17th. Hopefully, it's going to land somewhere in Inner Mongolia. China will become the third country after the United States and the Soviet Union to return moon rocks back to the Earth, a feat which has not been achieved in 44 years. So that's a really big deal. That's very exciting, and I'm really hoping that we see success with that.
Yeah, there's been some great images coming from the moon as well. It's really got me excited about the what's happening in the next few years, hopefully. And while we're talking about bringing back samples, in episode 8, you may remember we talked about the OSIRIS-REx mission, which took a sample from the asteroid Bennu. And you may remember within that episode, we mentioned that a few years ago, Japan took a sample from asteroid Ryugu. I think I'm pronouncing that right. That's how it's spelled. Anyway, with the Hayabusa 2 spacecraft. Todd's going to have a field day with me on these pronunciations. Anyway. Well, yep. I can't even talk now. Yep, exactly. I'm looking forward to those memes. Well, the spacecraft, the Hayabusa 2 spacecraft, approached Earth and released a capsule containing the samples before performing a maneuver which sent it back out to the solar system to go and observe some more asteroids. Intends on meeting up with a smaller one around 2034. The container then made its way through the atmosphere, which was picked up by cameras as a fireball through the sky on Saturday evening, and then it parachuted down safely near Woomera in South Australia. It's hoped that the samples from Ryugu could tell us about how water and the ingredients for life were delivered to the Earth. This has been a lot of fun to follow this story. I don't know if you were watching it the other night, Emily, but it was so much fun. It
was really cool seeing the fireball come back over Australia live. That was really cool because you were just like, oh my God, it's really coming back. And it's I think there was also footage from the ISS that they took of it coming back, which was unreal. I'm like, wow, that's so cool that they can get multiple vantage points of that. So that's very special.
Yeah, it was a cool maneuver as well. The fact that it's going back out again to meet another asteroid, I like that. But the maneuver it made, where it just dropped off the capsule and then bypassed the Earth, it was cool. But once it had done that, the capsule that had the samples in had no way of correcting itself, so that had to be spot on. So a lot of crazy technology going on there to get these samples. And it's a tiny little capsule. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a tiny little thing.
Yeah, it was itty bitty.
So yeah, it's. I'm looking forward to hearing the results of what happens there. It's going to be happening over the next few years. I know there's a university in England which is expecting to get a sample itself within the next couple of years.
All right.
So that's all the news we've got so far. Because we was hoping to have some news from Boca Chica about the SN8, but it's scrubbed.
Yes.
So
yes,
maybe that will happen. But I'm sure if you're anywhere near space Twitter, you will find out all about SN8 when it launches.
Today there was a little boy who came to the viewing room that was terribly worried about how Santa Claus is going to find you guys going round and round in the workshop. And he also couldn't understand what Santa Claus was going to use as a chimney.
So we got a spare chimney hanging off the side of this thing, and all he's got to do is know how to make a good orbital rendezvous, and we're in.
Well, we're going to help him with that.
So Christmas is coming up, and you may be being asked what you want for Christmas, or you may be thinking about buying something for someone who loves spaceflight, or someone who is just beginning to join our tribe. So we are here to suggest a few options and point you in a place or two to have a look. One of my favorite places to buy things is LunaReplicas.com. They made a name for themselves recently making replica flight jackets and accessories from the 1960s. But they have a whole range of space-themed t-shirts and other accessories and items, many of which I own, especially their t-shirt collection. So yesterday I took the opportunity to speak to their owner, Max Kaiserman, to find out more about their flight jackets and what the company's all about.
Hello, Houston, your feet wet.
Right, your feet wet.
Welcome, Max Kaiserman, to Space and Things. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm a massive fan of Luna Replicas and all you do. So please, before we get started, can you just give us an overview of Luna Replicas and how you got started and what's your mission goal?
Sure, Dave. Hey, thanks again for having me on here. It's really nice. I love what you guys do, and you and Emily have a great show. And Yeah, Luna Replicas is, aspires to be sort of the one-stop shop for, vintage space geeks. Apollo, Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, and, Skylab space geeks. I come from the entertainment and museum industry, which actually have a lot of intersecting lines. If you draw a Venn diagram, a museum, at least a modern museum, is sort of an entertainment experience. It's not just a place to go and read some scripts and boards and stuff like that tell you, oh, this is what the painting, was in 1625. Good museums do a living history experience. They bring it alive by having people in uniform or in, the period clothing or costumes of, whatever the time period is. And that is something I've been involved with since I was a teenager.
Right.
And through that lens, I have always felt, in addition to working in movies and TV and film and stuff like that, creating a set or creating an atmosphere really makes an experience come alive. And nobody was doing that really with the 1960s Apollo program or, Mercury, Gemini, Apollo program. Now, how you do that from home and the entire cosplay movement, which is nothing new, really. I mean, it really goes back to the, 60s and 70s and stuff like that. But, in the most recent time, in the last 10, 15 years, cosplay has become, more mainstream. That's a way for people to connect deeper with the shows and the stars and stuff like that that they really like. Why can't we do the same kind of thing with astronauts? Why not make being an astronaut cool? Why not being it something, make it something to emulate? Yeah. And that's really the mission. I mean, and so I combined cosplay and historical, living history reproductions. And when it comes down to, it's the same thing with certain cosplayers where it has to be stitch perfect. It has to be exactly what was seen on screen or, made from the same pieces. What is it? The lightsaber is made out of a flashbulb holder from an old press camera. We have to find that one. I looked at it the same way for Apollo gear. It's a gateway. It's and if you can put it on yourself, if you can have one at home hanging in your own closet, it's a gateway to making Apollo cool. It's a way of connecting you every day to the space program, to Apollo, to this inspirational moment in history, and maybe we can recreate that. Maybe we can have that again with whatever it is, SpaceX, NASA, European Space Agency. That's really the goal for me. And, it's a business and things cost money and stuff like that. And I have to, justify doing it. But I've always said if I break even, I'm very happy. My main goal was to get these things out here.
It was interesting what you said there about how you wanted astronauts to be cool and things like that because they were cool, but you always saw them wearing these jackets or these flight suits, and they were unattainable. You couldn't get them. Yeah. They weren't available for people, were they? So it's not like these things exist in the
military.
World
the military couldn't get them either. They were a different design. They were a different. Actually, the first pattern flight suit for the Mercury astronauts, which is really neat. Kind of has a belt and it's got exposed zippers and stuff like that. Some of the Apollo crews used it too, but it was really a Mercury thing. Actually, Neil Armstrong's just sold for, I think, $90,000.
Wow.
I have one. I have Jim McDivitt's actually.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and it was not $90,000. That was made by a men's, fashion designer. It wasn't even made by a military contractor because this was so different. It's a civilian organization, but it has a lot of military aspects to it.
Yeah, for sure. You've got it says coming soon on your website. You've got the Flightwear Gemini Apollo suits, the full kind of boiler suit thing. That's what you're wearing now.
I'm wearing it now.
Yeah, Emily and I both put there's Gus Grissom's one is at the American Space Museum in Titusville, and seeing that in the flesh was like, oh my god, it's one of the suits. It was like such a big deal, and
his is very small.
Yeah, and Neil Armstrong's one was in that goes on tour, was on tour. It may just be at it. an exhibit within the Museum of Flight in Seattle, but it was on tour with the Apollo 11 command module over the summer. And he kept his after the Apollo. He was able to, I don't know if they all kept them, but
yeah, a lot of them did. Yeah.
His had little paint splecks. He used to do DIY in it.
I love that. That's all, but that's so cool. I mean, if you think about this, what does this gear mean to the individuals that were issued it and wore it? And like you said, they were the only ones. They were unobtainium. You had to be either a pilot in NASA, like one of the training pilots or one of the guys that flew the Guppy or something like that, or you were an astronaut. And there were, at one point in time, there was only 7 astronauts, or there was only, 16 astronauts for a long time. What's interesting is that now, 50 years later, how many of them are interested in getting that back and what it means to them. And we've been very, very fortunate to, when Al Warden was alive, we were partners, and he kind of was the gateway to introducing Luna Replicas to, a lot of the living astronauts. And as of today, as a matter of fact, if the post office delivers it, there will be 9 Apollo astronauts that have Luna Replicas jackets. Fantastic. And about 4 or 5, I think at this point, mission control guys that have Luna Replicas stuff as well. And the feedback from them has been really wonderful as well. When you set out a goal to recreate something exactly like Stitch Perfect, to me and other, geeks and stuff, history people, it's like, oh, well, and it's exactly 1/32 stitch width and the zippers are brass and the bell shape of to somebody that lived it and was issued it 50 years ago during, the prime of their career, getting something that looks, feels, and smells exactly like the real thing is, you're getting transported back in time.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly, I mean, without dropping names, Jim Lovell said, he got his jacket and his sits in a museum now. Actually, one of his sold at auction a few years back, so he doesn't have it anymore. And now he gets to have it again and wear it, and he doesn't have to worry about it. It's not $20,000 artifact, historical artifact. He can actually enjoy it like he did originally.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Also, because those original ones are now 50 years old, and with the best will in the world, they're different shapes now. They're not the physical specimens they were then, so they probably wouldn't necessarily even fit into those old jackets. But would you want to wear it? I probably wouldn't. I'd probably, in fairness, I think it was mine. I'd want it to be in a museum if I was one of those guys.
Oh, absolutely.
I think they have the power to inspire.
Yes.
Just same way I just talked about Gus Grissom's and Neil's full-length boiler suits and me being like, oh my god, look at them. But I think the first time I really noticed these jackets and being like, I want one of those, was when I was a kid and when I watched Apollo 13 and Tom Hanks was wearing one.
The gold one, yeah, which is not historically accurate.
of course, because it's Hollywood. That was the point where it was, for me, it was like, those jackets are cool, or those style jackets are cool. And then when you then see the real ones, you're like, wow.
Oh yeah. And there's a lot of detail to them that people don't realize. I get a kick out of it. And when you look at something, and I know we're just talking about a flight jacket, but like if you look at an original one, to me, and probably to you, it's like looking at something that a sculptor. You can see the tool marks. You can see where they laid a stitch in one way or another, or where there might be a smudge somewhere, and you say, oh, well, maybe that's when they were climbing in and out of the simulator or something. Yeah. Which I was speaking with Amy Bean, Al Bean's daughter, and that's another thing. I'm sorry. Another proud demographic that we have are the kids Apollo kids.
Absolutely.
They, and it was their dad that wore this uniform and went to work, and they might not have seen him for months at a time, but that's what they wore. And when they did come home, that's what they were wearing. They, just like in Apollo 13, Jim Lovell walks through the door, and he's wearing his flight suit and flight jacket. And Amy Bean said, "Yeah, that's when I saw my dad go off to work, he hopped in a flight suit and he went in the car and he drove to Houston."
Absolutely. So obviously you do the jackets, and I mean that's how I found you. I think someone posted a link to jacket, and I was like, wow, this is this is incredible. But just because I didn't realize you could, I didn't even think that you would be able to buy one of these things, even as a replica, and the quality and the way they look. So wow, that's it.
Thank you.
But you have loads of other stuff on there, especially. Replica kind of stuff, so the watches and the toolkits and all that kind of stuff. Away from the suits and the jackets, do you have a favorite product which is kind of like a real thing for you to get into? Is it the watches? is it the toolkits? Because
that's like asking who's your favorite child.
Is it the sunglasses? I don't know.
That's a tough question because there's some things that we have that we don't make. I mean, like the Fisher Space Pen and the sunglasses and stuff. Those are made by the original companies.
Right.
We have them spec to the original specs, and then you get them ordered and they come in. The stuff that we make, the flight jackets and flight suits and the PT gear now, which I am wearing underneath my flight suit.
I thought you were.
I've got the short shorts on and everything. I mean, I'm most proud of that because we did that from the ground up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I am very proud of the sunglasses. That's something American Optical never stopped making those. You could go online on Amazon or, wherever and buy that particular sunglass. You had to specify the right stuff to get it to be the same configuration that NASA did, and that wasn't readily available. We had to do research and go to the Smithsonian and talk to people, and then I ordered it. I get them in bulk, and we make a change so that it matches, put the serial number on the temple, which matches what the original ones had.
Wow!
But those have gone farther than the jackets, and I mean that in that more people have them in their hands. They're literally seeing through this vintage replica all the way to Australia and Russia and Thailand and all of the European countries, and it's made things very accessible. So those were really the first thing that exploded us on the scene were the sunglasses.
Oh, okay,
right. And I have to thank Adam Savage for that. Adam is a good friend, and this is his genre as well. We say back and forth, so we always say we're the same geek, no, really. I mean, like we have found our people. And I think you asked at one point when we were talking earlier was, what is your inspiration for this? How do you choose what to do? What's the next product? And my answer is I choose what I want, like what would I like to see? And I wanted to see the flight jackets. I wanted to see the flight suits. I wanted to see, a Fisher Space Pen that had the right serial number on it and stuff. That's all we changed for the serial number. And fortunately, there are, thousands of other people that want exactly the same thing I do. So it works out,
Yeah, well, I think you're right. When you find your tribe, it's a nice feeling.
If I have the ability to make that connection, I could have made one jacket and be like, wow, man, like I'm complete,
Yeah.
But I knew people that could do this in bulk. I had the resources to be able to make it happen, and I wanted a project, on the side, something I really love doing. So making it available to multiple people, to hundreds of people or more, is really rewarding. And again, I've been very fortunate that some of those hundreds of people, or I think it's a couple thousand now, actually, have been Apollo astronauts themselves. Is really rewarding,
Yeah, I can't imagine what that's like. Putting a jacket on someone that used to wear one. That's got to be a nice moment.
Walt Cunningham was the first one.
Okay,
and then Al Warden. We made a special jacket for because he requested something different. But Walt was the first one that had the jacket. But I am very, very humbled by the fact that it's been totally word of mouth. They have spoken to each other and said, "Oh, you got to call this guy."
That's got to be a nice phone call to get.
Oh yeah. Well, so I have a regular day job too. I was in the middle of a meeting and I get this weird number from Michigan, and I said, "I don't know who it is, but I got to pick." It was I didn't really need to be at that meeting anyway. But anyway, so I pick up. He says, "Hey Max, it's Al Warden. You got a minute?" And I was like, excuse me for one sec. I told everybody in the room, I was like, I have to go. This is an emergency. I went into my office, closed the door, and I had this hour-long conversation with Al Warden. And I'm there like shaking. Like, this is really my first. I had met John Glenn actually when I was a kid, and I didn't quite understand who John Glenn was, but he was the first astronaut I met. Al was the first astronaut I met, knowing, the program and knowing everything. Jim Lovell I met shortly afterwards, and same thing. He calls every once in a while. We send him something for his birthday or Apollo 13 or whatever, and same thing. He's like, Jim Lovell here. You got a second? I was like, are you kidding? I will stop like driving a car and pull over to talk to you. Like I would fly somewhere to go, and what's interesting about them is that almost without fail, they are all, they're humble about, does anybody still care 50 years later, Especially the younger people. I'm 32 and I was not alive during any of the time, these guys, they said, well, can you even make a business out of doing this? I was like, are you kidding? Like, I can't keep them in stock. Like people love this stuff. And that's another part of the inspiring thing, is that if we can show that, that Apollo is cool and space history and exploration is cool, it gets it even deeper. Maybe somebody will take that. They'll see somebody wearing the jacket and it's cool, and they'll learn about it, and maybe they become an engineer or they become a pilot, or they get interested in history and stuff.
And that's another very commendable reason for doing what you're doing. And I love that, and I love all the stuff that's on your website, all the replicas and the high-end stuff. But Christmas is coming up, and not everyone can afford the more expensive stuff. I love your website for this reason as well. Number one, because I sit there and I just geek out on all the really fancy stuff. But you also have there's the second half of the website, which is the hats and the posters and the
shower curtains. We got shower curtains.
The shower curtains, exactly. And the bath mat with the Luna footprint and all that kind of stuff.
Get one. Those are awesome. If you're asking what's the number one thing, the bath mat with the lunar footprint. That's in full scale, by the way. So if you happen to have your own lunar overshoe, your EVA overshoe, it fits. It's just really fun. Around. Yeah, if you even think about it, like I have one in my kitchen. So every time I stand at the sink washing dishes, I'm standing on the moon.
Yes, I love that. Who comes up with those designs and those plans? Is that you as well, or are you commissioning someone to do that?
Some of it's me. Some of it is, friends of mine. Actually, I will say Jonathan Mayer, not the artist. Jonathan Mayer, who's a big space fan, actually started Luna Replicas, and I partnered with him to bring out the flight jackets originally because of my connections with living history companies. And one thing led to another, and the flight jackets really started to take off, and that became the core business. And Jonathan had a bunch of other stuff going on, and I wound up buying the business from him, and then growing it to what it is today. And I've been very fortunate. And Jonathan has stuck around as a friend, and he's a big space fan, probably bigger than I am. So he's helped with develop that stuff, and on top of that, he's a very, very good graphic artist. He's like a cartoonist. So a lot of those T-shirt designs, like the Miles and Miles and Miles, the Apollo 12, 14, the Disky, the SCE to Aux.
Got that one.
Yeah, the Nerd, even the Nerd.
Got that
meatball.
One. Got two of them.
Those were all Jonathan's designs.
Okay.
The last one that he did actually recent was the Space Park, the 1964 World's Fair.
Nice.
Space Park, which we did for the 50th anniversary of that. Or 55th? Yeah, 55th. Jeez. Like I was there. But he's great. And some of the other ones, it's just like the ones that I have put up there, my designs were stuff. I wanted things to be a little bit more accessible. Like I know that a jacket is, $300, but a shower curtain, shower curtains, whatever, $40 or so. Yeah. I love wearing the T-shirts though.
People really comment on the T-shirts as well. Whenever I can almost guarantee someone is going to ask me about those T-shirts, which does tie into the mission plan in an extent, even though I'm not wearing a replica with the exact stitching. It's an engagement with history.
Yes. Yep.
And it makes people go, that's cool, what's that about, or whatever. And the amount of time people have had to explain what SEE Talks is or whatever it is, you know, and just a nerd thing. People are like, I like that, where'd you get that from? And you tell them, and then you say, oh, they make these replica flight jackets, and they're like, what? That's amazing.
It's the gateway drug.
Exactly.
Exactly. So it's interesting, though, that you mentioned that, is I also make sure that every description of even the little T-shirts and stuff like that, every description on the website has the historical information. So it's not in a vacuum. You are learning. There is an educational moment there, and if you didn't know, you know, maybe if you read the description, you'll learn a little bit more about it. The whole SCE to aux, I have a whole, you know, minute by minute, you know, and John Aaron called up to Alan Bean, SCE to aux, what? You know, yeah, lightning struck a spacecraft.
So, Max, thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
It's
this
my
has
pleasure.
been amazing, and your commitment to this and your attention to detail and your all-out nerdery is amazing and really appeals to me.
We're all the same nerd, man. We're all the same nerd.
That's such a great expression.
Yeah.
And I even have the nerd T-shirt, so I'm definitely the same nerd. But yeah, I wish you all the best, and thanks very much for coming on. And please keep doing what you're doing because it's important.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much. You guys keep doing what you're doing. It's a great podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, Hank, there really is a Santa Claus.
Hey, did you find him?
Yeah, that rascal left us some goodies.
How about that?
All gaily wrapped, Christmas paper and ribbon and the whole bit.
What a great conversation that was. In fact, it's heavily edited down from a full 50 minutes of chat. Max and I had a great chat covering a whole range of space-related topics. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, you can watch that in full over on our Patreon page. Also, he has offered a 10% discount to some of the collections on the site to those who have signed up on Patreon. So go and log in to get the discount code or watch that full interview on patreon.com/space and things. And that discount will last until the end of January. But there were lots of great ideas in there, Emily. And you own one of those jackets, right?
Yes. Yeah, I have the gold version. I have the one that is very similar to the kind that Jim Lovell wears in Apollo 13.
Yeah.
There are a few decent photos of Lovell actually wearing it during like the 1970s. That's the one I have, and I love it. It's actually a really nice and warm jacket. Not that it doesn't get cold much in Florida, but it's cold now here.
Yeah.
It's unseasonably cold here right now. So it's very nice and sturdy, which I really enjoy, and of course it's beautiful. I did get my own name patch for it because I got a Emily Carney #1 Space Hipsters patch for it. But I love it. I most of the year it's hot here, so it sits in my closet in like a bag, and I just look at it, you know, admiringly because it's so beautiful and it's so well made, and it's such, I mean, it looks like the real thing. Like it looks like something. I when I was listening to your interview, I thought it was funny because you guys were talking about, you know, the first time you sort of got introduced to the, you know, the flight jacket. And for me, the first time I kind of got interested in having a jacket like that, but at the time nobody was making these, was I was at an event a few years ago. I was at an ASF event, an Astronaut Scholarship Foundation event, and a gentleman was there, and I've forgotten what the guy's name is, but he had Jack Swiggert's actual yellow jacket from the 70s.
Amazing.
Yeah, like he had purchased it. I want to say it was upwards. It was a pretty penny. It was a nice chunk of change, but he had like purchased it at an auction. And I was like, oh my God. And he was wearing it. And I was like, can I please just try it on? And he's like, sure, just don't get like anything on it or anything. And I was like, and I didn't have any wine or anything on me. So I was like, can I just try it on? So I tried it on, and I was struck at how Swigert was a big guy. Like he had really long arms. It didn't fit me. It was probably like a men's large, maybe an extra large. He was a big dude for an astronaut. So I was a little surprised by that because I was like, man, I'm used to like, astronauts like Gus Grissom, who was on the smaller side, and John Young, who was on the smaller side, and Swigert was big. Like, he was a big dude, like a football player kind of guy. So after that, I was like, man, I want a jacket like that. At the time, nobody was making them. So I was looking around on a bunch of websites, and I found ones that were similar, but not the same, and I was like, man. So when Luna Replicas came out with those years ago, this is very sweet. A lot of my friends chipped in to get me one on my 40th birthday. So that was very, very sweet. And I'm about to cry just talking about it. It's one of the nicest things people have ever done for me. And it was a surprise. I had no idea. So
that's amazing.
Yes. So it's in my closet right now. I need to take it out and wear it. It's like an art. It's like a piece of art. It's so beautiful, and it's so well made, and it's very well crafted and accurate. And this is the real deal. These are very high quality vintage replicas. These aren't, I've bought vintage replica. Let me say that again. Vintage replica. Why am I struggling with that word? Clothing before from not Luna Replicas, but from other websites. I won't say who they are, and it's disappointing. This is not it. You're gonna get your money's worth from this, so I highly recommend it.
They aren't cheap. They are. These are high end products, but that's why I wanted to bring up the lower price range things as well, like the t-shirts, because I think it's a company worth supporting. He's got the right ideas in what he's trying to do. He's happy just to break even. He wants people to own these things. And I just like going and browsing the website. It's got so much cool stuff on there. I just enjoy the photos. So you should go and check that one out. And I'm sure we'll hear from Max again in future as well. But yeah, what a lovely, lovely guy he is. I loved his story about our warden phoning him up.
Yeah!
That was great.
Yeah, that was... it reminded me of how much I miss Al, because he would do stuff like that.
Yeah. Like,
you'd just be like chilling one day and you'd get, a phone call, or you'd get like a message like, hey, how you doing? Like, and you're like, what? Like, hey, Al, how are you doing? And you're like, what the? And, I was very blessed to be friends with Al, but you still are just like, you see the name and you're like, oh yeah, it's just the command module pilot for Apollo 15. No, not a big deal. I just got to talk to him. Like, what? Who gets that?
Yeah.
That's what Al was like. He was just cool. Like, he would just call people, and like, he was just a regular dude. So yeah, that was a great story.
So with regard to other things that other Christmas gift ideas and other places you could go and look, I've been trying to write a list this week, Emily, and I could have put down 50 different books, but it's hard to buy books for space enthusiasts because you don't know who's got what, right?
Yeah, that's the problem. And there's it's hard for me to begin this conversation because there's thousands of space books out there. And I mean, there's a lot of, you can't see my floor right now, but my apartment is just space books. And some of them are, author's copies I get, just to review and stuff like that. But like, there's thousands of really good ones out there. So it's very hard for me to get started on this topic. I'm going to recommend a few that came out this year.
Okay.
That might be newer titles for those who are not familiar with them. Obviously, Sarah Cruddas had hers, so that's definitely one. There's also a book by Kellie Gerardi called Not Necessarily Rocket Science, and I think that's more of a primer, kind of geared towards younger audiences. When I say younger, I mean like probably teenage, college age, kind of a primer on how to get in the industry. And, you don't have to necessarily be this brilliant scientist or engineer to get into the space community. So, that's a neat title. That might be something interesting for, say, somebody who's kind of trying to come up in the industry and make a name for themselves, I guess, is a way to look at it. There's some really good space history books. There's one that just came out. It's called How We Got to the Moon. It's by John Rocco. And that one it's geared towards, I think, more for younger people, but it's really beautifully illustrated. So I do have a copy of it, and I think it's very lovely and illustrated if you're into that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I recommend it. There's also, if you like alternate history, which I do like, there's a book by David Oakes. It's called Apollo Rising. I haven't read it yet, but it looks really awesome. I've read a little bit of it. It's an alternate history about Apollo, and I love that kind of stuff, so I'm sure I'll enjoy it. And one really neat space history, actually there's a couple of space history titles that came out this year that I really enjoyed. One of them is called Beyond Blue Skies. It's by Chris Petty, and it's part of the Outward Odyssey series by the University of Nebraska. It's really excellent. It goes into the history of rocket planes and X-planes. So for you all into that, it's a really good read. A book that came out last year that is still really good. It came out later last year, so I'm not sure if everybody's heard about it, is The Ultimate Engineer about NASA's George Low. Mm-hmm. I've read it. It's wonderful, and I think everybody should read it. In University of Nebraska Press, they consistently put out some pretty amazing books, and if you don't have any of that series, you should check it out. One more, and then I'll shut up. There is if you're into Neil Armstrong or Apollo, a Reluctant Icon, which compiles some letters to and from Neil Armstrong. It's by Dr. James Hansen, who also wrote First Man, and who also compiled the first book of Armstrong letters last year. And but the newer one is called A Reluctant Icon, and it's letters. Some of it is a little dry, but I enjoyed it a lot just because it really illuminates like how much, Armstrong was kind of just introspective, and he was a little different from his colleagues. So I really appreciated it. And with that, I'll stop because I'll be here for 12 years. So I will stop now. There's thousands of space books. For a total beginner, A Man on the Moon by Andy Chaikin. Get him that. Yeah. That's one everybody needs to have in their house. I mean, just, I think everybody needs to get that one. So
absolutely. There's some great sections there. I need those letters books. I haven't got them yet, and I want to get those Armstrong letters books. There's one more book I want to bring up. Teasel Muir Harmony has just released a new book called Operation Moonglow. Teasel is the curator of the Project Apollo collection at the Smithsonian. So that's she's got a decent CV, put it that way. So I've read her previous book, The Apollo to the Moon: A History in 50 Objects, which is about the stuff that they have, and that was wonderful. And but this new book is about the politics behind the Project Apollo, and I think that's just a different side of it that doesn't always get covered in full. Obviously, we know about the Cold War, but this is I'm looking forward to reading this. This is on my list, and she's great. So I think it's one that you should keep an eye out if you haven't read that one yet. What I will suggest with this Christmas present stuff, museums have had a tough time this year. Yes, agreed. Totally. Some museum websites sell books from on their websites. I know the Cosmosphere does, and I know there's a few others that do as well. So I'm going to put links within this of those books, but I'm also going to put links to basically a load of museum stores. If you have a local air and space museum that has a website, check out that to see what they've got on offer, or if you can get down there, if they're open and you can do that. Then go and check out their museum. Some museums also offer gift cards to go and visit them, or even memberships. I had a year-long membership to the Space Center in Houston, which was great for when I was able to travel there. It meant I got free parking and a discount in the store and all that kind of stuff. If you're local to those kind of places, you should check those things out. And I think if you know someone local to a museum who's a space fan, they're always going to appreciate any museum-related gift. Or a gift bought from a museum, especially this year when they've had a tough year. Exactly. Yeah. That's a wonderful. I'm glad you pointed that out. That's a wonderful thing to do for the museums, and just like you said, they've had a rough time just because obviously not a lot of people have been going out this year. So yeah, if you can purchase anything from them, at the gift shop, even a T-shirt or something, it doesn't have to be anything big, and a patch. Yeah, a patch, a sticker. We all love a patch. All space fans love patches. Yeah, it sounds silly. The store in Huntsville at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, they have socks. I mean, it sounds dumb, but now that I'm in my 40s, I love socks. I remember being a kid and like, man, you get socks for Christmas, you're just like pissed off all day. Now I'm in my 40s, I'm like, just buy me socks, because you
Yeah, they have space socks there. I mean, yeah, and probably every space museum has space socks. So yeah, space socks. Get them some space socks. I mean, I'm dead serious. Like seriously, like what Dave said is really awesome because yeah, these museums are going to need a lot of help, and as we go into next year, and I don't know I know they're starting to roll out the vaccine for coronavirus and in Britain right now, which is awesome. But
today.
That is awesome, and that's wonderful news. That's very encouraging. But I don't know what the situation is like in the United States. Really, hopefully we'll be getting it pretty darn soon.
It's still gonna take time though, isn't it? We're still not going to be back to normal in the short term anyway. So yeah, there's still got a few lean months ahead. So for sure, if you can support the museums and there's probably some other smaller businesses as well. You'll know more about them than me, but I know Nova Space have a great store online, and they sell a lot of very cool stuff on their site. So there's places like that you just go and support. Basically, I'm gonna just drop a load of links, and Emily, feel free to send me some within the show notes. So just go and browse, and they'll all have things from all price ranges. But yeah, books, patches, socks. I love a novelty T-shirt. And hats, you know, and as a space fan, you just can't get enough of that stuff. Give me all the swag, all of it. Yeah. I will take any of it. As a gift, I'd probably rather have that than a book because I like to choose my own books. So, but T-shirts, socks, all that kind of stuff, all of it. I generally can't get enough, and I'm not someone who particularly values clothes too highly. So, but when I do, it's normally a space T-shirt or.
Exactly. Yeah, I usually purchase space T-shirts or space. You know, when I went to Huntsville, what's the first thing I do? I went and bought a Snoopy shirt, and I bought a pair of space socks with kitty cats and rockets on them. You know,
yeah, exactly.
So there you go. You know, I mean, and they have a ton of stuff at the store, way more than that. I mean, you could spend hours in the store, but yeah, a lot of people get swag. So. Definitely something to think about if you love space or somebody who's really into space. They're gonna like that.
We probably haven't given anyone that much insight, but hopefully we've made people think about where they're purchasing from, or at least looking. So do look in our show notes, and hopefully you'll find something that you didn't know existed.
Absolutely.
But thanks again to Max from Luna Replicas for coming on. Again, seriously, just go check out their website because there's a lot of cool stuff on there as well. Even if you just like browsing.
They also have, if you're into that, if you can afford them, they also have, as Max said, the AOs, American Optical, the sunglasses. I do have a pair of those.
Yeah.
I don't wear them often because I'm really, I'll just be real with y'all. I'm totally blind, so I need to get prescription lenses in them, but they are exquisite sunglasses. Like, they are incredible. Like, I mean, you put them on and you just feel like, yeah, I'm Al Warden. Like, I'm a badass. Like, I could just do anything. They're really cool. So yeah, they sell some amazing things. So if you want to come out looking like the ultimate astronaut, that's the website to visit. Definitely.
As we approach the holiday season, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and all the best for a Happy New Year.
That's all we've got time for this week. Hopefully you now have some ideas on what to buy someone, or perhaps what to put on your own Christmas list. I'm sure you've been good enough, child, to deserve a present or two.
Listening to us certainly does get you brownie points with Santa. Next week, we've got a pre-recorded show as we're having a week off on our regular schedule, but we'll update all the news the following week. We aim to produce a weekly show even when one or both of us are not available. So we hope you enjoy something slightly different for next week.
Yeah, I actually think it's one of our best episodes, Emily. So I'm sure they'll enjoy it. But thanks very much for tuning in, and thanks again for the donation, merchandise purchases, and Patreon subscriptions. It's mighty kind of you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening and pressing that share button. But please remember, in space, no one can hear you meme.
Except you, Todd. You meme too loudly sometimes.
Space and Things has been brought to you by And Things Productions.